You're listening to the Growth Experts Podcast. So if you're looking to 10x your business by learning proven growth strategies, you're in the right place. During my interviews with top CEOs, entrepreneurs, and marketers, I dig deep to uncover the real strategies, hacks, and tools to help you achieve your goals. And I'm your host, Dennis Brown. Hey everyone, this week we're giving away a 1-year subscription to pushlink.com, Pushlynk. It's valued at about $600. Pushlink allows you to send push notifications to your subscribers on almost any platform. The fact is, push notifications get about 10 times the response rate when compared to traditional email. For a chance to win, subscribe to the podcast, then take a quick snapshot or picture showing you're subscribed and text it to 716-218-8981, or you can email it to growthexperts@yahoo.com. Now let's get back to the show. Welcome, everybody, and we have yet another amazing guest today. Her name is Ginzburg, and she's a digital marketing expert with over a decade of industry expertise and experience. She's also the CEO of Ginzburg Digital Marketing, which helps companies scale their revenues, optimize sales and marketing processes, as well as improve productivity. Jean is also an Amazon best-selling author with her book, Win New Customers: How to Attract, Connect, and Convert More Prospects into Customers in 60 Days Using Digital Marketing. Now, that was a mouthful, but welcome to the show, Jean.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I listen to your podcast, so I'm very excited to be a guest.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. We connected on LinkedIn, as many of my guests and I do. And so we had a little bit of a chat prior to this. But for my audience, for the people that don't know you yet and don't know who Ginzburg is, why don't you take a second and tell us a little bit about what you got going on over there at Ginzburg Digital Marketing?
Oh, absolutely. I would love to. So as you mentioned, I've been doing digital marketing for over 10 years, actually 11 years just this past February. And 5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to go on my own. And I think it was a time for me to make the change. I was thinking about becoming an entrepreneur for a long time. Actually, became an entrepreneur 10 years ago, but for a few things that went wrong, for a few of the ventures that I started, things didn't work out. I had a full-time job for the first few years of it. But then 5 years ago, I was like, I think this is the time for me to quit my full-time job and go on my own. So for the last 5 years, I've been working with private clients and helping them find customers or prospects online using digital marketing strategies. So we have a process that I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but we work with our clients on things like identifying your target market, Facebook advertising, Google AdWords, retargeting, sales funnels. So basically all of the digital marketing strategies, bigger strategies that we need to find in order to find customers or prospects online.
Great. So it's been about 5 years on your own. And so how big is Ginzburg? I mean, can you tell me maybe by number of customers or revenue or employees? Can you give us some scale of how big your company is now after 5 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we can talk about employees.
Sure.
We have about 10 employees and contractors. And so there's people on my team who help me with research and help me with creating campaigns and client management. And then we also have consultants that help with project basis. So things like copywriting and graphic design and video editing, where we just need them more on a project basis versus on a more of a full-time basis.
Okay, great. So, one of the things about digital marketing that I think is so challenging is that everything is changing at such a furious rate. I mean, you've got SEO and you got social media and email and pay-per-click and blogging and funnels and, marketing automation and live video. And, it just goes on and on and on and on and on, right? And,
absolutely.
And not only do you have all those things, but it seems like everything is going through major changes as we speak. But one of the areas that I know you really specialize in and you think is very, very important for your clients really revolves around kind of identifying that customer avatar. And I know you've kind of differentiated your process, and I know it's a part of your book. Can we dive into that a little bit? I know you've got a process of how you go about that with your clients. Would you mind unpacking that for us a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to discuss the ideal target market, the customer avatar. It is a chapter 4 of my book. And just to comment on what you were saying earlier, things change in digital marketing and ever so quickly. And I feel like it's just getting faster and faster in terms of the change. So I know that it's hard for entrepreneurs and small business owners to focus on their products and their services and also try to really keep up with the digital marketing. So there's a lot of resources out there and people like me who that's what I do all day long is stay on top of those trends and stay on top of all those changes. So
yeah, that's one of the biggest benefits to outsourcing, right? Is that you'd allow them to stay on top of it and you don't have to have all that expertise in house because that's your full-time gig. That's what you do. You should be an expert after a decade. If you're not, then we got to start asking questions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like I guess my trend thinking forward is that it's probably not going to get any easier. It's probably going to become even more quickly in terms of like the amounts of changes going on with digital marketing. That's what I see that to be. It's just going to be getting faster and faster in terms of change. So, but yeah, absolutely. One of the main points that I talk about when I first onboard a new client is their customer avatar. Who is their ideal target market? And I can take a step back from that because a lot of times, most of the time when I work with clients, it's really about digital marketing. And that makes sense because they want to find their prospects online. But before we can jump into finding these prospects, going to social media, doing sales funnels and Facebook ads and whatnot, we really have to identify who are we going after. Because I always say, no matter how great your video might be or how funny it is or how fantastic your copy is on your Facebook ad, none of that is really going to matter if you're going to put that in front of the wrong eyeballs. So the customer avatar and identifying who your ideal target market is, I would say is like 50% of the battle. So if you know who that is, or you can identify those pieces at least partially, then you're on the right track because otherwise it's just flushing money down the toilet if you're going to be spending on Google AdWords or any sort of paid media and Facebook ads and not knowing who your ideal target market is. So I think it's extremely important. And I use a 3-pronged approach to really identifying who your ideal target market is. So the first one is understanding your demographics. So that's usually where most businesses start, although that's usually also where they mostly end. And I think that's what brings me apart from a lot of the other digital marketers out there is that I also have prong number 2 and 3, which is talking about their psychographics, their challenges and pain points, and also where they're hanging out. So let me go back to point number 1, which is the demographic data. So we want to first identify things like age, gender, marital status, if they have children, and where their general geolocation is, maybe in a specific metro area, or maybe in a specific region, or maybe in a specific country, depending on where you are doing your marketing. So that's the first level of the customer avatar and identifying who your ideal target market is. So the second prong of the approach is understanding what their goals and values are, because that's also going to be important. We really want to know what's really driving them. Where do they want to be? What do the points and the signals of success look like to them? Because that's all going to be that we're going to include later down the line in our marketing messaging. We're going to include that in our content, in our videos, in our articles and blog posts and things like that. And we also want to identify what are their challenges and pain points, because really how we structure things a lot of times with my private clients is, we identify what their challenges are, because then we have to, then we say, hey, based on what your challenges and pain points are, this is how our service or our product will solve, or I'll help you with those pain points and frustrations and challenges. So that's also extremely important, because again, that messaging that's going to go, that once we identify what those challenges and pain points are, is also going to go into your content, into your marketing materials, into your videos, and all of the marketing pieces that you're going to be creating when you're actually going to be doing the marketing and digital marketing. So that's the second prong, is identifying challenges and pain points. And then the third one is what I call where are they hanging out, sources of information. So that's also important, especially if you're going to be doing Facebook advertising, because if you're not familiar with Facebook advertising, or anybody who's listening to the show is not familiar with how to do Facebook advertising, a lot of it is based on of course, you have the demographic things like geolocation, and you have age and gender, but it's also Facebook advertising is also based on likes. So you usually go after an audience that likes a certain, let's say they like Oprah or they like Tony Robbins. So it's really important to identify the sources of information that your audiences are also going after. So things like blogs and websites. Are they following certain blogs? Are they following certain news medias? Are they reading certain magazines or books? Are they going to certain events? So maybe they go to Tony Robbins events. Are they following certain gurus? So those are also very important, especially, like I said, for identifying your target market for in the future if you're going to be planning on doing Facebook advertising, because again, you are going to be using those conferences, events, gurus, blogs, and including them in your campaign when you're going to be narrowing down your audiences within the Facebook advertising ads. So those, I would say the reason why I kind of stand out from the crowd when it comes to digital marketing is that I really go after also the challenges and the pain points and the frustrations and the sources of information. And I feel like a lot of times digital marketers or other agencies just kind of go through the demographics and then end there.
Yeah, I agree. And so, but what I want to do is I want to dive into that a little bit. Number one, the first prong you said was demographics. The second one was kind of psychographics or, pain points. And the third one was where are they hanging out, correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. So as you sit down with a new client, sometimes it's like prying, their wallet out of their pocket. It's so hard to get information out of them, right? And sometimes it's the exact opposite. They won't shut up, right? So we've all been in both scenarios.
Yeah.
My point is that how do you extract, is there a strategy or a source of information or something that you use to extract that information? So let's just pick one, for example. Let's pick the psychographics, like the pain points. What's the best way to gather that information? What do you suggest or what do you do with your clients to get that information so that you make sure you hit the mark?
That's a very good point, because people do ask me that quite often. Like, yes, there are challenges and pain points that my customers have, but how do I actually get it out? Well, the easiest way I would say is to do a survey. And there's a couple ways of doing a survey. One is through email. So if you have current customers that are already on your email list or prospects that are on your email list, then sending them out a short survey, maybe 5 or 10 questions about their challenges and pain points and asking those questions specifically is method number one. And then method number two is I always try to get my private clients on the phone with about 10 or 20 of their current customers. So again, asking the same questions, but I think what I've seen with having people actually get on the call and talk to their customers is that there's just much more information that's provided. There's, it's a much better interaction and connection when you're actually doing it on the phone. So create a survey first, ask questions in the survey, like, why did you buy my product? What were your challenges before you bought the product? How did my product or service solve those challenges for you? So craft similar questions like that, and then go to either your email list or to the phone and actually go to your customers and ask them those questions.
Yeah. So I think both. I think a two-prong approach of doing the survey and then the call makes a lot of sense, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I typically do with my private clients.
Yeah. And you could even as a part of that survey, you could gather what sources of information they follow, right? So what influencers, what trade magazines, what blogs, you could ask them and you could gather some data there. And what I've found, and I would like to get your feedback on it, is that a lot of times that email survey, the difference between the information you get through the email survey versus the actual phone call can be very different because people think differently when they're replying to a survey as opposed to talking to somebody on the phone. And so I think the survey is really just that starting point, and the phone calls probably is going to be 10 times more valuable because now you can actually have them elaborate in on that answer a little bit more. And that's really where you're going to figure out how to hit the mark. I've done that in the past with clients, and what I actually had them do is record the call. So I had them ask if they could record the call and never play it, but just for the ability to, to make sure we transcribed it and got all the data. And that's worked really well. So I think that's great. So thank you for expanding on that. So digital marketing, obviously you're a digital marketing expert. You're an entrepreneur. You own your own business. That means your number one responsibility is probably getting new clients, right? You got to get new customers. It's the lifeblood of any new business or of any business is new clients, right? So what's the number one strategy that you as a digital marketer are using to get clients today? If you had to pick one, the one that's giving you the most new clients, what would it be?
I would say it's word of mouth and referrals. And I know that's what everybody always says, but honestly, that's really worked really well because it really is all within my network. That's why I think it's very important to build your network out and to have entrepreneurs in your network because they can refer business back to you. And I do that all the time with my network because not only do they pass business back to me for digital marketing, but also they working with complementary agencies or consultants. So maybe they do development work like for your website, or they do copywriting, or they do branding. We're all kind of going after the same customer avatar, right? We're going after the same target market, but they're doing different things for that target market versus digital marketing, which is what I do.
So you've created partnerships with other professional service people that are non-competitive where you guys can refer business back and forth because you deal with the same clients, you're just dealing with a different service.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that once you kind of grow your business and you get to know more people in your industry, having these kind of complementary strategic partnerships is extremely important because that's really where I get a lot of my word of mouth clients.
Okay. So now I'm going to challenge you as the digital marketing expert that I brought you on the show to be. Let's take the referrals out of it and let's assume that referrals didn't exist. What would be your go-to digital marketing strategy for getting clients for your own business?
For my own business, the second way that I get clients is through LinkedIn. So yes, the first one definitely is word of mouth and referrals and through my strategic partnerships. But I would say with social media and online and using actually digital marketing, I get a lot of inquiries from LinkedIn because I do have a pretty large network on LinkedIn. And well, I met you on LinkedIn and that's how we ended up doing this podcast. And I've done a ton of different podcasts also on LinkedIn. So it's not only just necessarily like going directly and having people come to me and asking me for services. It's also through partnerships and eventually will then some of them become, referrals again. So for example, if I do a podcast recording like this one and I'm a guest on podcast, a lot of times I work with people like you who then refer business back to me. Again, we met through LinkedIn and it might not be a directly people coming to me, but it still works also as a referral method down the line, because the way digital marketing works nowadays and basically really any marketing and securing clients, it's going to be multiple touch points. It's not just going to be somebody sees me on LinkedIn and they're like, go to me and they're like, okay, I wanted you to do my digital marketing. There's going to be a lot of touch points and they're probably going to see a lot of my content online before they even get in touch with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Jean has a very robust LinkedIn network. She has over 10,000 connections. She's on there regularly. I'll add the link to her profile in the show notes so that everybody could check that out and connect with her there if they choose. So I'm going to kind of start moving towards the end here, but there's one question that I ask that I think is really important. And knowing what you know now, right? 10 years ago, you started as a newbie. Now you're a decade in, but so much has changed. Knowing what you know now, what would you do different when it comes to growing your business faster? If you had to pick one or two things, what would you do differently?
Absolutely. I've gotten that question quite a bit. And I would say if I could do it all over again, I would start creating content in the beginning. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when I started, actually before I even started my current business, I feel that I would have been a much bigger authority in my field at that point because I would have had now 10 years worth of content. And I'm talking about digital marketing and trends and all of the new technologies that have come about in the last 10 years and really growing a following and growing an audience over the last 10 years. So if anybody's listening to the show and you are not creating content, so things like videos and blog posts and articles, then now is the time to start doing that.
I think I know the answer, but I'm going to let you answer. What would be the primary form of content that you would use? Would it be blogs? Would it be, video? What would it be? Imagery? What would be your primary form of content that you would use to start that out where you would just double down on that type of content?
Right now, it would be video.
Okay.
And I would highly recommend that. I know that people are a little camera shy, and I was camera shy in the beginning when I first started doing videos. And my setup was a complete joke when it comes to like audio and lighting and things like that. So, but I read up on it. I looked at blog posts. I looked at videos on how to set up your video equipment. I bought the equipment, things like light boxes and microphones and lavalier mics. And it wasn't a big investment. I mean, maybe I spent a few $100s on it. So absolutely, video is really the way to go because the audiences and your users and your prospects just feel much better connection with you when you're on video versus doing things like imagery or just writing or even, audio. Audio is good, but I feel like video is so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. No question. All right. So, one question that I ask all my guests is, what's your favorite growth tool or software, that you've picked up here in the last year or so that you're using to help grow your business?
Grow my business. Well, I would say one of the productivity tools that I've been using for the last couple of years has been Calendly or a similar platform like that. But basically, it's a scheduling platform for your calendar. So if I want to set up a call with someone, in my network, an entrepreneur, I just send them a link to my Calendly, and then they find the time that works for them on my calendar when it's not blocked off. And I feel like that's such a good productivity tool for any business, and I would highly recommend that. It doesn't have to be Calendly. There's many different alternatives to it, but I like it. I like Calendly because it's free and it's really easy to use, and a lot of people are familiar with it when they're actually setting up the call or the meeting with you. And I just remember back in the day before these kinds of platforms were about, it took like 3 or 4 emails to go back and forth. You're like, okay, are you free on Tuesday? No, I'm not free on Tuesday, but I'm free on Wednesday between 3 and 4. So it just took forever to do that versus having this productivity tool just makes things so much easier and faster.
Totally agree. I use Calendly. It probably saves me 2 or 3 hours a week for sure.
Yep.
So what's one book you've read recently that you think would be valuable to my audience?
That's an excellent question because since the beginning of 2018, I have been on a book, just a trend for reading books. And I probably at this point this is 3 months in, probably have read about 10 or a dozen books at this point. And I would say the one book that I didn't read in the last 3 months, but I have read in my lifetime, and I still highly recommend, is the book by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And no matter who you are, if you're an entrepreneur, if you are a business owner, or if you just have a regular job, I think everybody should read this book. It just provides so much value when it comes to learning how to deal with people, how to be a better self. So I highly recommend. Have you read that book?
Absolutely. And I recommend it to all my clients, to anybody that I work with. Yep, absolutely.
But recently I've read a couple of books in the last 3 months since I've started just actively reading. I really like the book by Daniel Pink called Drive. That was a really good one. I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So yeah, there's a few that I really liked in the last few months that I've read.
Perfect. Well, listen, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today. Why don't you let everybody in my audience know how they can connect with you, and most importantly, how they could get a copy of your book, Win New Customers?
Yes, I'm super excited. I'm giving away my book for free to your audiences. So anybody listening on the call, or I'm sorry, I'm not on the call, on the podcast, I am very excited to give away my book. And if you go to Win New Customers, that's with an S, winnewcustomers.online, you can sign up absolutely free and get the book for absolutely free. It's a PDF version, instant download. So please go ahead and go to winnewcustomers.online. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So you can find me there, Gene Ginzburg, Digital Marketing Expert. I'm also pretty active on Facebook, Gene Ginzburg, Digital Marketing Expert. So I love to hear from your audiences.
Perfect. Listen, thank you so much for being on the show today, Gene. And I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.